I want to thank Molly and the Historical Society for inviting me to be here this morning to talk about something I love, my city. So there we are, Butte, the Mecca of Montana history. I am Ellen Crain, and for the last 32 years I have served the people of Butte as the archivist, and it has been a job I have loved, and it has been fun every day, and we've learned every day. Butte Archives, there it is. See, this beautiful building here is a building that the city of Butte and their people are paying for. It was constructed in 2010, and it has served the archives very well. We were founded in a 1900 fire station in 1981, and we have grown since then. We reached our capacity in 2007, and we asked the public to fund a bond, and they did. 75% of the voting public voted yes. So if Montana is indeed the Mecca of Montana history, this building is the well. And we serve our community, but we also serve a special population of about 5,000 people who travel from all over the world to study here. We have this incredible history, and we can document every component of it. And I'm hoping that by the time I'm finished that you have a greater appreciation for our community. The intensity of the place. It is rough, it is real, it's powerfully evocative and indelibly marked by its troubled history. The city possesses undeniable power of place. Patrick Malone, a stranger to us, but immediately recognized these things about our place. Powerfully evocative. The Boulder Batholith, it occurred some 60 million years ago. There were actually 2 events, and it is the foundation of our story. It mineralized our community, pushing those precious metals and those essential metals, gold, silver, copper, lead, zinc, and some interesting strategic metals, molybdenum, manganese, cadmium, all kinds of wonderful things. The list is long. This is why we are here. From the very beginning, it demanded brute strength, impossible resilience, and a total commitment of man's desire to triumph over every obstacle. The ore locked in granite, almost impossible to get out. It required technologies to free it from the stone, and extracting those precious metals from the granite was proving challenging. This is the point where the strong and the cunning survived in the mining game. They knew how to find the money to buy the technology and science to unlock the ore. The landscape and material culture of Butte is a bridge to our past. The mountains of the Continental Divide, where we are nestled, the brick buildings and idling towers of the Gallus frames are a source of pride and a tool for understanding the city's complex and often painful past. The legacy of our place is viewed in our landscape and our built environment. This medallion, hopefully that's what's up there, is of Electra. This is in a bar in Butte, and you can see it in the Copper Bowl room at the Finland Hotel. It says everything sort of about what Butte is. It's in the Copper Bowl room, and it is Electra. This is our story. This is why we're important in America. our copper electrified this country. And from the very first time man came here, they were tossing the copper in the garbage dump just to get the gold and silver. And really, it was the mother ore of our place. By the time copper reserves were identified by the mining people, electricity was starting to be a thing. And it was determined that copper would be the best, most conductive metal. And the marriage was incredible. So if we did indeed electrify America with all of those great reserves of copper, we changed the course of American history. We provided a second industrial revolution. People could now work all night. They could go to a ball game in the evening. And let's talk about the gift of plumbing. Indoors. So the real story that we tell is not necessarily about mining, it is about the products of mining, which is the electricity and those copper pipes. No one in this room has ever gone out in search of a pound of copper to purchase, and yet you use it every day. You get in your car, you turn on your computer, you turn your lights on, you take a shower. So copper is our story. It's another component of our story. As early as 1871, Montana rivers have been utilized to produce power for Montana cities. But the tremendous growth of our mining enterprises in Butte, we were not only providing the conductivity metal, but we were the biggest consumers of electricity at that time in Montana. Under the leadership of John D. Ryan and Con Kelly, all power resources in the state of Montana would eventually become consolidated under the Montana Power Company by 1912. And the Anaconda Company would be the biggest consumer and customer of Montana Power Company. John D. Ryan was the president of both companies. He's a very fascinating story. In 1910, Ryan stated there's more gold in the Missouri River than in any of the mines in Butte. The golden kilowatts, they're still producing. So we have a lot of ore, and we had a lot of power to get it out of the ground, but what we didn't have was a lot of water. Being at the top of the Continental Divide doesn't give you a lot of water because you're at the top of the source. Water has been the most limited resource we've had, and as early as 1880, potable water was almost impossible to find. William Clark built a reservoir near his molten mine in North Walkerville and started to capture the water as it came off the divide. He needed that reservoir to feed his industrial complex on the shores of the Silver Bow Creek, the Colorado smelter. Fred Quivik is here. This is his story. And Clark then sold his excess water to the city of Butte for use by its citizens. In 1890, a rival company started to build a water company that would bring water over the Continental Divide out of the Big Hole. That water would be pumped to a reservoir high in the highlands. This was a significant engineering feat at the time, and it is still considered a major engineering feat. But those are great stories about how we got water to drink ourselves and to feed our industry, but it is the most recent acquisition of water that is the most interesting. In the early 2000s, the city-county of Butte-Silver Bow acquired all of the water rights for the Silver Lake water, which is in Deer Lodge County. It's a major source of water, the biggest Butte-Silver Bow has ever had access to. It also provided water to the city and county of Anaconda-Deer Lodge. This sort of marriage between these two cities is not strange or unusual, since they have always been a unique relationship. So water is a big story in our community. So extracting that ore to produce that copper and that electricity required a really significant labor force. And it didn't just need miners, it needed woodcutters and electricians and carpenters and iron workers and machinists and day laborers and ropemen. And it needed them by the thousands, and it sent for them. And those that came sent for others. That workforce came from all around the world: Finland, Norway, Cornwall, Italy, Germany, Russia, Spain, Greece, England, Wales, Ireland, Canada, China. They came from everywhere. They brought their practices, they brought their religion, they brought their culture and their language, and they all learned how to live together and work together. They built their churches, their restaurants, their organizations, and their celebrations, and we all learned to celebrate with them. We learned their calendars and their Christmas dates, and it was always a good time. The cost of mining. Mining was considered one of the most dangerous occupations in this country. In 1919, 1 man a day died of silicosis, and 1 man a week died in an industrial accident. In 1917, early June, one incident took 169 men's lives, leaving wives and children alone with limited economic opportunities. This one incident had just a profound effect on this country. The Granite Mountain Speculator mine fire had a variety of unsafe mining conditions were revealed after that fire. Miners went on strike, demanding safer worker conditions. That strike called a man named Frank Little to come to Butte to keep the miners organized and to assist them in staying organized and demanding a good work environment. Frank Little was murdered, hung from a bridge by capitalist interests. That's what it says on his tombstone. We're still looking for the culprits there. But that strike also interrupted the mining of strategic metals for the World War I's war effort. And so it had a really profound effect on the nation. Thought it was really interesting that Jeanette Rankin came after voting not to join America, not to join the World War I. She came to Butte and begged miners to go back to work to save our soldiers because they needed those bullets. The actions of capitalist interests in hanging Frank Little and the stoppage of mining made people realize that they really had to get control of this. So they went to Montana State Legislature and passed something called the Montana Sedition Act in 1918. That act was taken to Washington, and they passed the National Sedition Act. It's a very profound piece of legislation, very repressive piece of legislation. For more information on that, you can look at Michael Punk's book, and you can also look at Clem Work's book. I think Dr. Murphy has touched on that topic as well. So the significant loss of life left families, women and children, with limited economic opportunities, and they would have to go to work And what would they do and how would they survive? Well, women had some opportunities. They could become a waitress, a laundress, a bucket girl. They could be a teacher, a nurse, a prostitute, a secretary. Children could sell newspapers, run errands, sell eggs, and girls could be yard girls or run buckets. Most of those occupations would fall under one marvelous union called the Women's Protective Union. It organized by gender, not by occupation. They provided opportunities for women. They provided housing for women. They worked to ensure that married women's children had childcare. The Women's Protective Union is a really marvelous story, and we have had volumes written on it, and it's a wonderful story of how women would survive in very precarious positions. So I want to talk for a few minutes about the cost of mining to our landscape. It's a necessary activity. I did not see a horse in the parking lot, so you all got here by some means that required copper. And that has a tremendous environmental price tag to it. And we love those luxuries, so I don't think we're going to give them up easily. Even though it has a profound cost to the labor force, we have had a reckoning here in 1983 when Butte was deemed the largest Superfund site in America. We were terrified as a community. Our leadership did not want that to happen. They felt it was a damning moniker, that the community would never survive. However, not since the Greater Butte Project has anything in this community had this dramatic an effect on our landscape. Superfund has employed thousands of people. It has changed the character of our workforce from blue collar to white. It has had engineering firms and laboratories have replaced the machine shops, and kids no longer play on mine dumps. They have green spaces and parks and trails to ride their bikes on. This has been a really great thing for our landscape. And this is our Silver Bow Creek. This is a tremendous restoration effort. This creek has really been restored, and we are starting to see more and more aquatic life come up this stream. And it is not finished, but it has been a tremendous effort through Superfund. People are throwing kayaks in this stream, which would have been unheard of in 1975. No one would go near this body of water. But it has had a tremendous effect on recreation in our community. It's a wonderful thing. And this most powerful place. This is our everlasting legacy of mining. It's of a daunting concern. This body of water is one of the largest in our state, and it holds heavy metals, sulfuric acid. It could threaten many downstream ecosystems. There is all kinds of science on this body of water. This body of water could actually be mined for copper, and it has in the past. So we have looked at this body of water in many ways, but really as a classroom. We could talk about what happens when you displace neighborhoods to develop the open pit mining. We could talk about this loss of community. We could talk about irresponsible actions of corporate beings. We could talk about science. And I have this wonderful lesson from this body of water. Several hundred snow geese landed in this body of water. And this body of water is actually the laboratory of a marvelous scientist named Andrea Sterle. She has been looking at this water for probably the last 30 years. She had said, I think the cure for cancer is in this water. Now, this is a woman who has developed and found a fungus in Montana that is used to make a chemotherapy drug called Taxol. And I thank Andrea Sterle every day for that. Her work is so fascinating. She's an artist, a woman, a scientist, a wife. And when she started looking at this water after the snow geese were removed, she found a microbe. And this microbe is known to live in the colons of snow geese. And as those geese were trying to get out of the water, they evacuated their colons. And this microbe eats heavy metals. And it will be there to help us clean that water. I'm all for Andrea Sterle and her marvelous science, because I think she will fix this legacy of mining. And this is our greatest asset, our people. They are resilient, they're real, they're generous, they understand their place, they can stand on a street corner and tell you everything that ever occurred there. They stay committed to their community and the future of it. They will talk to you about their relationship to the history. Some of you will attend a session done about the 1895 fire. We have people today whose families died in that fire who still carry that with them. It's a wonderful connection to the past. Butte, a powerful place indelibly marked by its impressive contributions to America's history, and occasionally its tragic history. This place is indeed the Mecca of Montana history, and this is the well, and you can learn about all of these topics and more at this great facility. This great facility was designed by this year's Montana Historical Society Board of Directors Heritage Keeper Award winners, A&E Architects. A&E Architects indeed are the heritage keepers, because without our buildings and our material culture, where can we stand and tell our story all across this state? They have had a tremendous impact on the architecture and the restoration of great buildings. I will congratulate A&E because we have had a great relationship with them. And I also want to say that all of you scholars out there, the Friends of the Butte Archives offers a fellowship, the Carrie Johnson Fellowship. We offer it in March. You can find out more about that at buttearchives.org. And this year, the Cristoforo Colombo Club and the Friends of the Butte Archives are offering a fellowship to study the Italian communities of Butte. And we hope to get some Montana scholars. Our scholars have come from all over the country, and we'd like to get a Montana scholar to come. So that is my presentation today, and I want to thank you for bearing with me.